Why is reading important? So if you don't know me, I'm Sarah Mudrick. I'm the English teacher for grades 9, 10, 11, and 12 here at Laupahoehoe. And I've also been serving as the family engagement coordinator this year because I want more events like this where families and teachers come together to support our students the best that we can. So again, thank you so much for your presence here today. Now, you may be surprised to learn this, but I had trouble learning to read. Didn't expect that of an English teacher, right? But it's true. So when I was about ready to go to preschool, my mom started noticing I wasn't catching up on reading as quickly as she had, reading and writing. So all I remember is that my head hurt and I didn't really want to read at all. So my mom talked with some other parents and learned about Hooked on Phonics. It was a little bit of an investment, so we didn't get it right away, but by the time I was in first grade and I was still struggling, they decided to get Hooked on Phonics. And after that, I read through all the Hooked on Phonics and my head didn't hurt as much anymore when I was reading. Now by second grade, my teachers were concerned because I never learned how to say the letter R. Now this is pretty funny for a baby, especially when their name is Sarah, and it comes out sounding like Sarah, right? My parents also enjoyed making me say rascally rabbit, wascally wabbit. But it's not so funny when you're in second grade. Now this is a thing that usually resolves itself. It's not uncommon, but mine had not resolved itself. So the school got a speech therapist that came and pulled me a few times a week to go work on saying R, where I swore I was saying it, but that is not what she was hearing. But eventually, I did finally learn how to say R and W differently. And I went on to become a voracious reader, taking AP and honors classes, becoming an English major, and now I teach English. So I say all of this because if you are struggling reading right now, that doesn't mean it will be that way forever, right? But we need to take our motivation, our commitment, and our support to overcome those reading challenges, and that time to start is now. So if you didn't know, reading is quite complex. Lots of things are going on when you're reading, right? From language comprehension to word recognition, background knowledge, all of these things are happening, right? And this is in particular called Scarborough's rope. You don't need to remember that, but it's just to show you how complex reading truly is. And just like when we're walking down a trail, the more we walk on that grass and stomp it down, the better we will remember those neural pathways, right? So if reading is hard for you like it was for me, it may or may not comfort you to know that we are in good company. The Reading is Fundamental organization is dedicated to spreading awareness about the epidemic of literacy in America and has lots of resources and research to support parents and teachers with best practices. They've published these statistics that currently 34% of students entering kindergarten do not have the basic skills to learn to read. 67% of fourth graders are reading below grade level, and only 37% of students graduating high school are at or above proficiency nationally. This graphic's a little confusing, but it's saying in 2022, 65% of fourth graders did not meet reading standards in Hawaii. So basically 35% of fourth graders were reading on grade level in 2022. This was a year where all the nation's scores fell, so we actually outperformed the nation. But as you can see, that's our struggle at the moment. So over the past 4 decades, literacy performance in the nation has stagnated, according to National Assessment of Educational Progress. So how did we get here? America was once a highly literate country. When our first Puritan settlers came over, they really encouraged literacy and valued it, and we had a very high universal literacy rate. By the 1920s, with the Industrial Revolution and the onset of more books, we were reaching 70% literacy rates in some places. And by the early 1980s, the National Education Association, NEA, estimated that 95 million Americans read literature at least once a year. But as of 2011, America was the only free market OECD country where the current generation was less well educated than the previous. In Hawaii in particular, Hawaiians also had a very extremely high literacy rate back before Hawaiian language was outlawed, and we had nearly a 90% literacy rate. That's amazing. One of the most literate nations in the world, the Hawaiian Kingdom. And today, 1 in 6 Hawaii residents are struggling to read. So what happened, right? Well, many of us point to a decline in reading at the same time as a rise in technology use, right? More and more time is dedicated being to activities like watching videos, scrolling social media, just being online in general, or watching television. This has led to lower rates of reading for pleasure than ever. Reading for pleasure has been shown to be strongly correlated with being a proficient reader. And here we see data from 2005 showing that 12th grade students who read almost every day had a 28-point lead in their test scores than students who never or hardly ever read. And the same is true in 2002 with writing scores and reading for pleasure, relating to a 29-point difference. Now, if your high schooler has me as a teacher, you may have heard something like, Miss Mudrick just won't shut up about robots and artificial intelligence and the internet and social media and phone addiction, and it's really annoying. And I'm here to tell you that they are 100% correct. I will not shut up about these things. And I just finished this book. It's called The Shallows, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains, scary, by Nicholas Carr. And it was a 2011 Pulitzer Prize finalist in general nonfiction, and I highly recommend it. In it, Carr argues that the internet has, in fact, rewired our brains and changed the way we think. Indeed, our brains are plastic, and even when we reach adulthood, our brains can rearrange to support the functions that we use the most. So the brain processes and functions that you use when you're browsing the internet are completely different from the very solitary, insular experience you have when you're deep reading a book. When we're on the internet, we're way more likely to shallowly read, skim, scan, skip, click into different links, open a new tab, open a new window, maybe even open a new desktop if you're like me and have another idea, right? This encourages distracted thinking, right? Furthermore, we are able to rely more on helpful software to solve problems for us, which Carr also argues is limiting our ability to creatively solve problems. And he's not alone. Other authors and researchers are saying that we are entering a new normal of skimming instead of ever reading, right? And we can prove this through eye tracking research. And in 2019, a meta-analysis has also concluded similar things, that when we read on digital platforms, we're more likely to skim, browse, quickly look for keywords, pull relevant information from text, and we tend to be overconfident on our abilities reading online, meaning we're less likely to stop, pause, reread, make sure we understand, make connections to what we're reading. All of these things are decreasing when we are reading online. We're reading distractedly. Oop, too far. There we go. Sorry. And many different people have pointed to the rise in ADHD in children being from many different factors, including sugar, processed food, artificial dye, caffeine consumption, or just plain overdiagnosis. But in The Shallows, Carr argues that engaging in distracted methods of information consumption has likely made us to function in general in a more distracted manner. So we know the method does matter. Up until this point, we've been operating under the assumption that it's content that matters, not the medium. But if the medium does matter, as Carr argues, then we must not let books fall by the wayside in this digital book burning. Although the internet has increased access to content for many, we must now wrestle with whether this is developmentally appropriate for children. We need to be aware and critical of the changes happening in society because of these technologies. It's been well established these technologies are designed to be addictive. Usage of social media has been associated with a host of negative emotions and increases in mental health issues, especially in young, impressionable children. And we are seeing attention spans decreasing, increasing memory issues, and as I mentioned, increasing difficulty with reading and writing. Please take it from an English teacher. One school aware of this is the private Waldorf schools, which top executives in Silicon Valley send their kids. These schools have a zero tech policy until 8th grade, and still then, it is limited even in high school. And in their parent manual, it says the ideal amount of tech time for children is none. And still, the technology just keeps improving. You may have heard of the recent release of ChatGPT, a large language model AI, which is currently in its research phase and thus free to users. ChatGPT can generate nearly any chunk of text that you can think of, given you provide it parameters. So here it is, describing itself in a friendly and casual manner, including a silly joke, and ending with a note about how great the rest of the article is going to be. Hello readers, my name is Assistant, and I'm a large language model operated by OpenAI. I'm here to help answer your questions and provide you with information on a wide variety of topics. I'm a bit of a jokester, so here's a quick one for you. Why was the math book sad? Because it had so many problems. But seriously, I'm excited to be featured in your article, and I hope you enjoyed learning more about me and all the cool things I can do. And trust me, the rest of the article is going to be great. College professors are inputting their essay prompts for their courses for 200 level classes and finding it can write a solid paper, which they would probably grade an A-. Here's the paper. I'm also part of a few ELA teacher Facebook groups, and ChatGPT has been a nonstop conversation since it hit the scene. These are just some of the many posts I've seen where teachers instruct it to write 5-paragraph essays, poetry. Here's a creepy one about how teachers are no longer relevant, written by ChatGPT, or even write a lesson plan, build a rubric, or write a positive message home about a student. It's even managed to pass the MBA exam. So, what does all this mean? Well, it means as a society, we are going to need to evaluate how we are making meaning and what we consider valuable. How do we find our worth and our value? Will we have to see ourselves beyond just our output capabilities? We will have to remember what makes us human, develop our capacity for empathy and reflection, all things that ChatGPT cannot do. Critical thinking and discernment is more important now than ever, and it just so happens there is one thing that greatly encourages empathy, deep reflection, critical thinking, and discernment. And can you guess what it is? Reading books, you're right. Awesome. Yes, reading books has been shown through different scientific studies to increase empathy, increase your attention span, and exercise our brains indifferently depending on what you're reading. So what can we do? Being here is a great first step. Getting some books is another, and I will talk about that in a second so you can grab yours. But first, we need to start early, right? Starting early provides the most support that we can, and if a reading issue is caught early, within the identified early, the proper interventions are applied. 90 to 95% of the children with risk factors for reading failure will become fluent readers. We also know that socioeconomic factors greatly impact the amount of words students are exposed to early in life, and it's been quantified at a difference of 30 million words by age 3 between students coming from privileged versus underprivileged backgrounds. We can also start reading at home together. It's critical for young children to observe their parents reading. You have the most potential to influence instilling positive feelings about reading in your children. Indeed, it's encouraging that children who only take 15 minutes out of their day could be exposed to 1 million more words by the end of the year. Along similar lines, children growing up with homes with at least 20 books benefit from 3 more years of education than children with no books in their homes, regardless of their parents' education, occupation, and class. And lastly, the variety also matters. So having access to different materials like books, magazines, newspapers, and encyclopedias has shown to increase standardized tests. Next, limit tech time, right? We're seeing a huge increase with each year. Younger and younger children are spending more and more time on tech, hours out of their day, right? In 2019, it was also shown that 4th and 8th graders who spent more time on tech were less reading proficient, as you can see with these statistics. Almost done, guys. Don't lose ground over summer. Make sure that students are reading over the summer using some of the activities that you engage with today, and make sure that they are reading that free book that they take, right? Research has shown that if you stop reading over the summer, they may lose a month or more of progress that they made in school. And this summer slide adds up cumulatively and is the equivalent of losing 3 years of reading progress by the end of 5th grade. And lastly, get involved, right? Partner with your school, partner with your child's teacher, partner with me. In 4th grade classrooms where parent involvement was high, students scored 28 points higher than the national average in reading comprehension. So, you can learn all of this and more from our wonderful teachers today. Today is formatted in a self-paced station activity. You can visit whatever station that you like. They all have activities, handouts, prizes, games, or something great to teach you. You can find me at station number 4 for reflective journaling to promote critical thinking if you'd like to discuss anything I talked about today.